I spent a full 2 months in the Russian Caucasus despite strong Foreign Office warnings against traveling there. But how extreme is it really in southern Russia? What dangers are lurking? And how are you perceived as a German? I answer all these questions in this video. Yes friends, welcome to this video that's a bit different, a small recap of my 2 months in the Russian Caucasus. And yes, for those who don't know me yet, I'm Finn's fairy tale from the Soviet project, a project that aims to shed light on the somewhat overlooked regions of this world, on the former Soviet republics, which very few people actually travel to. My fascination with the Eastern Bloc began when I was 18 years old. I started learning Russian at university for 3 years, then studied and lived in Russia for about 5 months and continued to improve my Russian skills. And then I started traveling to the former Soviet republics, and by now I have already visited 10 out of the 15 Soviet republics. And that is how the Soviet project on YouTube was founded. And I've already visited some republics in Russia as well. In Russia, there are 22 constituent republics. I have been to 5 of these 22 republics, and they were all located in the Caucasus. And according to the media, that's also considered mainstream. It is considered the most dangerous region in all of Russia, the most critical region, one that people are strongly advised not to visit. And that is why I wanted to do another small recap here. How was my time in the Caucasus? Grab some popcorn. Let's begin with the 5 Caucasus republics I visited. My journey began in Kabardino-Balkaria, a fascinating republic that most people have probably never heard of. Kabardians, Balkars and Russians live there. Balkars are Turkic, so their language closely resembles Turkish. Kabardino-Balkaria is also famous for Mount Elbrus, the highest mountain in Europe at just under 6,000 meters. I mean about 5,600 meters, and that alone already makes the natural scenery extremely impressive. Enough with these side facts, let me share my personal experiences. I arrived at the airport and it was truly insane. It was the smallest airport I have ever seen, just a small warehouse with a single baggage belt. So it was really absurd how small this airport was. The capital city was also very interesting because it felt like a city in transition. The entire capital was basically one huge construction site. Construction everywhere, noise everywhere, drilling everywhere. The Kabardino-Balkaria video hasn't been released yet. And that's why you don't know about the experience I had there yet, but it's a very fascinating region. The city has a certain Soviet vibe and feels distinctly Caucasian. You might think you're in Georgia or somewhere similar. And my buddy, who traveled through this region with me, had exactly the same feeling. What are your first impressions of this republic? After 10 minutes.
It's kind of hard to compare it to other places.
Does it feel like Russia?
No, not really. It feels like a more provisional part of Russia. It reminds me a bit of Tomsk or Kemerovo, somewhere I've been.
Time has really kind of stood still in this area. The city is very quiet, the markets are totally empty, and overall it's extremely calm. That means it's absolutely not this wild Caucasus that people imagine, but we still had some really nice days there. It is a very liberal region by Caucasus standards. There are no rules when it comes to clothing. It's not as conservative as the other republics in the Caucasus. More on that later, and it's definitely worth a visit because the nature is absolutely incredible. Before showing you the nature, let us briefly talk about the people there. The people are really hospitable and have a very positive attitude towards tourists and Germans. I talked to several people. Here, I'll briefly show you a conversation I had with a woman where I talked with her about Germany and about tourists in general.
We all belong together, whether German, French or American. We love everyone. We are a friendly country. Politics stands on its own and wages wars, but we are one. A human is a human, regardless of nationality.
In the end, Kabardino-Balkaria is perfect for anyone who loves nature. We spent several days hiking through nature, and even though I do not have many shots, you can quickly see here that nature definitely has a lot to offer. Also, most of you probably don't know that Europe's highest mountain is here, so our days in nature were definitely wonderful, especially for the history nerds among you. As the Germans advanced in the Caucasus, Wehrmacht units climbed Mount Elbrus and raised the swastika flag on both peaks. But for Hitler this was not a glorious moment at all. He was extremely angry that the soldiers had wasted their time. With mountain tourism, as the sources I read described it, it was still used for propaganda, demonstrating the Wehrmacht could reach anywhere, even Europe's highest mountain. And yes, it is still a fascinating story to this day that I like to tell. Because Russia still uses this Elbrus as a symbol of resistance and as an important point in the fight against the Germans. The second place I visited was North Ossetia, an incredibly fascinating republic because it is an Orthodox Christian republic surrounded by Islamic republics. I felt extremely comfortable in this republic because especially when you spend months in Islamic republics and have to follow many rules and customs that are quite foreign to you, then it's very pleasant to be in a Christian region, and yes, I really enjoyed my time there. By the way, I visited this area because it was the site of the deadliest terrorist attack in Russian history. There has never been a terrorist attack with so many victims in Russian history, but what actually happened? On the first day of the school year, Chechen and Ingush extremists stormed a school in the small town of Beslan in North Ossetia. More than 1,100 people were held hostage for 3 days, including over 800 children. And you have to imagine all those children and also the adults. The teachers were held in that tiny gymnasium. Bombs were placed everywhere, and on the third day, one of those bombs went off. The situation escalated, and all police officers and military stationed outside the school intervened. In the end, more than 300 people were killed, most of them children. It's especially cruel that most victims were children. I don't want to spoil anything since the video isn't out yet. It's so intense that I have a hard time editing, working on this video. What's special about the video is that I met one of the victims who was held hostage at the school back then. Guys, I have now met one of the victims of this school terror attack in person, someone who experienced this horror over 20 years ago. She was one of the hostages at the school. The children were in the gym.
Yes, a total of 1,300.
And you were inside there that day as well?
Yes.
What a nightmare. Back then she was still a teenager. Now decades have passed and she spoke to me about her fate. She was traumatized for years. And she's a wonderful woman. One of the most beautiful encounters I've ever had on my travels. Fatima was incredibly open. Fatima invited me to her home, to her family, and shared a meal with me. I had the chance to meet her husband, who is a film director himself and has made 2 films about this tragedy. And the school itself is really, that's also intense. Stuffed animals everywhere and everything is still almost exactly how it looked back then. You can see the suffering, you can see the conditions, you get a good sense of how terrible it all was. And then there is the cemetery in the city, the so-called City of Angels, because only the children who died on that day are buried there. All elementary school children. The cemetery is filled with children who died on the same day. And like I said, extremely young. And when you combine the visit to the cemetery, visiting the cemetery, the school and the family was very emotional. And yes, the video will come sooner or later when I'm ready to devote myself to this topic. I've only visited Beslan in this republic, so I haven't seen the Vladikavkaz or other well-known cities in this republic. But overall, very, very hospitable, wonderful people. And the only Christian republic in the Caucasus. Third, I was in the Republic of Ingushetia. Ingushetia is considered both Russia's most conservative and poorest republic by many sources. And that was something completely different from North Ossetia or Kabardino-Balkaria. It's a highly conservative Islamic culture, so there are many rules. As a man, you're not allowed to wear shorts or tank tops, and as a woman, you always have to wear dresses. There are very clear gender roles. Men usually work, and women are seen as being responsible for the kitchen and the household. And you really notice that it is a very masculine culture. There is a certain energy in the air. You feel a certain level of respect in this republic, which I found it very interesting. The people were very hospitable. I met several English people, but of course it's an extreme contrast to what I had seen before in Russia. Overall though, I have to say that the republic is still fascinating, because you have a very well-maintained capital, very clean, and great infrastructure when it comes to the roads. You don't feel like you're in the poorest republic, but I still couldn't really warm up to it. You just have all these rules. As a foreign man, for example, you're not allowed to talk to English women, that's forbidden, or you have to ask the husband for permission first. That's a bit foreign to most of us from the West, I would say, but yeah, for a few days it's of course not a problem. The region is very unique. There were also years of bride kidnappings, meaning family men would kidnap women in order to marry them, because there was often resistance from the bride's family. So really a special region, still very hospitable with great food. What more can I say? Watch the video for details. Videos on the other republics are linked in the description. Of course, I also filmed in Ingushetia. Fourth, I was in Chechnya, probably the most famous region in the Caucasus because it is supposedly the most dangerous one. And yes, I had a lot of respect going there. The region used to be shaped by extremism. There were also 2 Chechen wars in more recent times, the last one lasting until 2009. During that war, Grozny, the capital, was bombed into rubble. There was basically nothing left, and as a result, living conditions were extremely harsh. Today, however, the capital has been heavily modernized. There is a modern shopping mall, very beautiful mosques, and a city with solid infrastructure. And that is not just me saying it. It really is like that. Feel free to look it up. Chechnya is now a well-developed region in the Caucasus, especially because a lot of money is being invested to strengthen social cohesion. Because of course they do not want another conflict like the one that lasted until 2009. Chechnya is ruled by Ramzan Kadyrov. It is de facto a state within a state, a region that is considered stable today, but also one of the most authoritarian regions in the country. As I said, I was warned extremely often about this region by friends from Russia, family members and acquaintances. And I have to say I felt extremely safe in Chechnya. You see children playing outside until 10 or 11 at night, women walking through the streets. Even around midnight, it is a very close-knit community. I had the feeling that everyone knows everyone. I never felt like it was unsafe. I was traveling with my friend Mansour, and he explained the rules very clearly to me, which was really interesting.
Tourists definitely do not need to worry if they follow the rules here. Do not walk around in a tank top, wear normal pants, a t-shirt or a shirt, and do not approach our girls. Those are the main rules. If you follow them, you will not have any problems. You will always be welcome. You can come and people will always help you, no problem.
He also had very clear words about dating. And yes, I found it interesting to see how strict it all is. I understood that relationships only happen between Chechens, but cultures in the Caucasus are quite similar. Can an English man meet a Chechen woman without problems?
Meeting is not a problem.
I mean, when it comes to marriage and things like that.
Serious relationships do happen as well.
But for Europeans, it is a no-go?
That is completely impossible. Chechens usually marry other Chechens.
I am being honest with you. Many of the values lived in these republics do not feel natural to me personally. But because I travel so much and have visited almost 50 countries, I have learned to put aside my ethnocentrism, if you want to call it that. Cultures are different, values are different, and that is okay. You do not always have to judge them. Germany, for example, often acts like the moral world champion. Just look at the Qatar World Cup, where people sit there and try to tell others in Qatar how they should live. That does not help, and there is no need to play the moral high ground. It is better to stay true to your own values at home. Anyway, what I was getting at, Chechens enforce their values very strongly, and I think that is something one can at least learn from. But I do not want to get too political. It is still a fascinating topic, and I noticed again and again how different cultures are and how you need to adapt. The last republic I visited was Dagestan. I think everyone knows it by now. It has become a cult name through MMA and combat sports, and I have to say, I was extremely positively surprised. An extremely complex republic with over 30 ethnic groups, 40 languages, and so on. It has often been the scene of terror in the past. But nowadays it is really a tourism hotspot for domestic tourism. Many Russians come here. You have beautiful beaches, amazing nature, mountain landscapes. I visited all of that. And especially the city center is very well maintained, very clean, and in that sense it does not fall behind Sochi at all. It is also much more liberal because they are used to tourists. You see Russian tourists shirtless on the beach everywhere, and no one minds. That would be unthinkable in Chechnya, for example. There is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Derbent, a 5,000-year-old city with a beautiful fortress, very historic. I can only recommend visiting Dagestan. Ingushetia and Chechnya are very special. You really have to want that. But Dagestan is now truly a tourist destination and definitely worth recommending. What is also interesting is that Dagestanis are extremely affected by the Russia-Ukraine conflict because a huge number of Dagestanis volunteered. Because the financial situation there is so bad that these financial incentives are extremely attractive, and because so many young Dagestanis die. In this conflict, they also view Germans in this region quite negatively. I will now show you an interaction I had with a babushka at the market.
What is your nationality?
I am German.
What are you doing here?
Tourism?
The Germans are fighting and killing us.
We are friendly, that is just politics.
You are not friendly. We do not want you here.
But I am friendly. You do have a beautiful country.
And our people are kind, but your politicians are snakes. They are not normal. The chancellor looks like a devil.
What does he want from us? You have food, you have clothes, a roof over your head. What does he want from us? And yet he attacks us.
It is simply amazing that they can sit there and live with themselves.
Well, still have a nice day. It was the first time in Russia that I was actually confronted for being German, and I could somehow understand it in the sense that there is a certain level of frustration, and the media probably also portrays Germany as the villains, constantly supplying weapons and so on. But yeah, I did not want to withhold that from you. So if you want to vacation in Dagestan, I can recommend it. Much more relaxed in terms of vibe than Chechnya or Ingushetia, much calmer. And yeah, I really liked it. So friends, the video ended a bit abruptly because the camera just shut off back then, but only the outro was missing anyway, so no problem. I just want to remind you once more, all videos about the republics are linked in the description. That means Chechnya, Ingushetia, Dagestan, all videos are linked again. Also a small shout out to Felix from TechSite who provided his YouTube studio for me. So if you are interested in tech, check the description as well. And lastly, a bit of self-promo. Guys, I started a second channel called Finn's Fairy Tale. We currently have around 1,500 subscribers. Feel free to check it out. There will be cool videos and more content from Russia. So if you do not want to miss that, head over and subscribe. We are at 1,500 subscribers. Maybe we can even reach 2,000 today. And then the next Russia video will already be coming to the second channel. Exactly guys, I would be very happy if you check it out. The video from the second channel is linked here as well. That means you can click straight over to the video and land directly on the channel. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this recap. See you soon, take care, bye.